300 years ago, long before the roar of traffic or the hum of industry, the sound that defined Northamptonshire was the voice of its church bells. And many of those bells, the bright ones, the bold ones, the ones that still ring today, were cast by a single craftsman in a small town workshop in Kettering. His name was Thomas Eayre. Bellfounder, clockmaker, mapmaker, antiquarian, and one of the most remarkable artisans this county has ever produced. Thomas was born here in Kettering in 1691 into a family of metalworkers. His father, also named Thomas, was a blacksmith and clockmaker. The young boy grew up surrounded by fire, iron, gears and tools, the early ingredients of a life spent bending metal to his will. His mother Anne died when Thomas was still a teenager. His father passed away in 1716, but by then the younger Thomas had already become an accomplished mechanic in his own right, repairing clocks for the local gentry and developing a reputation for precision and excellence. He had an artist's eye as well as a craftsman's hand, a skilled draftsman, a patient surveyor, and an illustrator trusted by historians. Those talents would soon catch the attention of one of Northamptonshire's great antiquaries. In the early 1720s, the historian John Bridges of Barton Hall was preparing his massive history of the county. He needed someone who could map towns, sketch churches, and record the landscape with accuracy and artistry. He turned to Thomas Eayre. In 1721, Bridges commissioned him to produce a detailed map of Kettering, one of the earliest ever drawn of the town. It shows streets, houses, fields, and most importantly, the small building in Wadcroft where Eayre had recently launched a new and daring venture, his own Bell Foundry. Around 1717, Thomas opened the Kettering Bell Foundry, initially in partnership with his uncle John. Their first known bell, cast for Cranford St John, proudly bears both their names. Thomas A. Johannes Eayre de Kettering Fakerund, 1717. Soon, bells were leaving the furnace at a furious pace. 1718 saw commissions for Burton Latimer, Mears Ashby, Yielden and Walkton. But after that year, John's name disappears, and Thomas becomes master of the foundry alone. The workshop stood at the top of what is now Bellfoundry Lane, just off the High Street. Today it's an ordinary little alley, but in Eayre's time it echoed with the roar of fire, the clatter of moulds, and the bell metal being poured white hot into clay pits sunk deep into the ground. Thomas himself lived just around the corner on Bakehouse Hill, close enough to walk between home and furnace in minutes. Over the next 4 decades, Thomas Eayre became one of the most prolific bell founders in the Midlands. More than 200 of his bells survive, some still ringing, others preserved as treasured relics. At least 75 are in Northamptonshire, 77 in Leicestershire, and dozens more across Rutland, Bedfordshire, Huntingdonshire, Lincolnshire and Warwickshire. The Reverend J. Ludlam, who observed Eayre's work firsthand, said, "He had a true taste for the art of bell founding and spared no expense to make improvements." Eayre studied the finest bells in the country, drawing their profiles and measuring the curves that produced the richest tones. He made his own templates, refining the sound of his bells until they rang bright, balanced and beautiful. This wasn't just craft, it was science, and it made him famous. No church benefited more from Eayre's genius than St. Peter and St. Paul's, right here in Kettering. His name appears on one of the bells recast in 1714. He recast the 7th bell in 1722. In 1733, he supplied the church with its great new bell, the very heart of Kettering's soundscape. Local records show him doing all sorts of work: repairing chimes, adjusting bell frames, maintaining clock mechanisms. And in 1755 he was commissioned to build a new town clock, installed the following year. But Eayre's reputation spread far beyond his hometown. He maintained the Great Clock of All Saints, Northampton, under a 21-year contract. He was the trusted mechanic and clock repairer at Dean Park, working for the Earl of Cardigan, tending not only to clocks, but locks, jacks, and survey instruments. He rebuilt the church clock at Wellingborough in 1750, and spent more than 10 years maintaining the turret clock at Great Harrowden, leaving behind meticulous bills that still survive today. Every one of these places relied on him to keep their lives running on time. And then there was his pen. Eayre's drawings for bridges were admired throughout the county. In 1738, he produced a beautiful illustration of the Roman pavement at Weldon, one of the most impressive archaeological finds of the time. His work is so detailed and so accurate that copies survive today in the British Museum. He was, in every sense, a man who recorded the world around him, in metal, in ink, and in time itself. Somewhere amidst all this industry, Eayre found time for a personal life. Around 1725, he married Susan Baxter, the daughter of a fellmonger from Hemmingford Grey. He had recently supplied the village with 5 new bells, and perhaps this was the commission that brought the couple together. They lived comfortably, and by the time Thomas reached his 60s, he owned his founding house and warehouse in Wadcroft, a cottage and 6 small tenements, 2 acres in Upper Field, and a townhouse in Bakehouse Hill. Together the couple raised at least 4 children: Anne, Sarah, Frances, and the only son, Thomas, who would eventually inherit the foundry. Frances later married John Bates, a Kettering watchmaker, and their descendants kept the craft tradition alive well into the 19th century. But the long years of work took their toll. Susan died around 1755. Thomas followed soon after, dying late in 1757 and being buried at Kettering on the 3rd of January 1758. Father and mother were laid to rest together somewhere inside St. Peter and St. Paul's, probably in the south aisle of the chancel. Their stone has vanished, but their legacy has not. In his will, written just days before his death, Thomas left £50 to each of his daughters, and the foundry, tools and equipment to his son, Thomas. The younger Thomas did his best to continue the trade. He cast excellent bells. One of his bells, at Boston in Lincolnshire, was especially admired. But by 1762, financial pressures proved too much. He went bankrupt, and the Kettering Bell Foundry closed its doors for the last time. The age of the Eayres in Kettering was over. Yet the family legacy lived on. Thomas's cousin, Joseph, established the St Neots Bell Foundry, which passed through several hands until it became part of the line that created John Taylor & Co. of Loughborough, one of the most famous bell founding firms in the world. Through that line, the sound of the Eayres still rings globally. Walk down Bell Foundry Lane today and you'll see just a simple faded sign. No furnace, no clay pits, no molten metal. But listen closely on a Sunday morning or on a crisp winter's evening, and the bells of Northamptonshire still ring out across the fields. Their notes are bright, their tones are pure, their voices are timeless. And many of them carry, in their very shape, the hand of Thomas Eayre, the man who mapped Kettering, repaired its clocks, recorded its history, and gave its churches their voice. 300 years have passed, but his work still echoes, quite literally. If you enjoyed this video, please drop a like and subscribe to the channel for more.